There's been this news circling around social media about the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remaster because as soon as it dropped, essentially right away, people noticed in the character creation option that instead of having the male and female choice, they just have body type 1 and 2, which, I don't know, to me, since it's another binary choice, it's just male and female, but of another name. But the funny thing about it is people trying to defend this decision, even though it comes across as completely arbitrary, they're basically making it out to be like, oh no, this is an arbitrary decision. It's not a big deal just to change male and female to body type 1 and 2, but yet this is very important. You better not change this, or just trying to go out on a limb to attack anyone who is like, hey, why'd you make this arbitrary change that basically means nothing right here? You have this article from The Gamer, and just get a look at what people are trying to say in the defense of this decision on the part of the game. The game isn't woke, you're just a moron. Oblivion Remastered community hits back against people complaining about the game's body types. If the usual crowd of detractors is to be believed, there's a grand AAA gaming conspiracy to wokeify every aspect of our gaming existence. This article never cites anyone specifically who was saying there's a grand AAA gaming conspiracy to wokeify every aspect of the games. There are people who have said that there are studios trying to push an agenda in certain little bits. I mean, there's people at these studios who've even said as much that their goal is to try to push an agenda in their game or use their game as a platform in order to push their own political agenda and other things like that. So I don't really think that's a conspiracy at this point. Like I said, it's being hyperbolic to say it's a grand AAA gaming conspiracy or people are claiming that sort of thing. We actually just call that a straw man argument since they're not citing anyone specifically, or at least no one credible, maybe just some like random person online that could just be the writer of this article posting that just so they have someone to complain about from a sock puppet account. This group of anti-woke gamers are now targeting Oblivion Remaster, citing the removal of the gender options in the character creator as evidence of a woke conspiracy. For those out of the loop, the male and female gender options in the Oblivion Remaster have been replaced by Type 1 and Type 2 body types. Now, the question for people I have that are defending this, why are you defending it, so to speak? Like, why is it necessary to change male and female to body type 1 and 2? Like I said, it's basically the exact same thing, only over a different name. So what's the point of actually changing it if it's not really a big deal? And that's the part that people can never answer when they're defending this sort of decision. They'll try to say like, it's not a big deal. Why are you complaining about it? It's ridiculous to complain about it. Yet they will defend the decision to actually make this change. Because if it's really not a big deal, then I would always err on the side of like, if it's not a big deal, then you might as well have just done what the original game did, especially if it's a remaster. So, but they'll always say it's not a big deal, so you might as well change it. And I don't understand where their logic is on that one. And I think a lot of it has to deal with the fact that they think it actually is a big deal and they are trying to push some type of agenda with it. As minor as it is, it's basically like the Mott and Bailey argument where they tried to progress their argument to something that's less defensible. They got pushback, so now they're retreating back to just something like this. And that's why I would say that this is almost a victory for the anti-woke gamers, but I'll get more on that in a moment. One of the things about this though, people saying like, it's not a big deal, so you could just ignore it if that's the case. And people are like, okay, fine. If that's the case, then I will just ignore it. In fact, I'll install a mod to remove it so it goes back to being male and female. Because like I said, it's exactly the same thing if they did that. But when people tried to do that, Nexus Mod decided to ban those mods from hosting them. And I don't understand why. Again, it's not a big deal, but yet you can't actually mod it. And I would say if it isn't a big deal, then you should be able to allow these sort of mods in there. And the thing is, this isn't anything unusual for Nexus Mod. They've done this sort of thing before. Starfield, when that came out, there was the pronoun debate with it because you select your character's pronouns at the start, and we heard the exact same thing again. They're like, it's not a big deal. It's just pronouns. Why do you care? You can just ignore it. People are like, okay, fine. I'll just install this mod that allows me to remove that option. To be like, no, you can't do that. This is very important that it's in there. But at the same time, it's not a big deal. So you better not complain about it. You see how ridiculous it is? At least people who are on the anti-woke gaming side have a little bit consistency in their argument. Even if you think they're overextending on this one and trying to be a little bit overly sensitive to it, at least there's a consistency to their argument where they think something is woke, so they don't want it in games. The people who are kind of on the woke gaming side, though, I don't understand. There's no consistency in their argument when you say that it's not a big deal to include these options or include this terminology, but yet at the same time, it's important that it stays in there, and you can't even install your own private mod in order to remove it for your own gaming experience. So to me, that just seems kind of weird, but Nexus Mod seems to go down that route, and this isn't the first time. They also did this when it came to the Spider-Man game, and these are just a couple examples that I just pulled up. There's a ton of examples of them removing mods that kind of go against these agenda. This Spider-Man one, though, I thought was particularly funny because only thing that they actually did was, instead of removing the pride flags and replacing them with the American flags, all they did was just made it so you played the Middle Eastern version of the game. And I just thought that was the funniest part of all this, because Sony's going to push pride flags for their domestic releases. But when it comes to the Middle Eastern release, yeah, they're going to go back to the American flags because they actually want to sell the game there. And they don't want to do anything to risk the audience, alienating the audience over there. But one of the things about studios that are kind of doing this when it comes to their character creation options, as I said, it feels like this is kind of a step backwards for the people trying to push a political agenda in games, because it wasn't long ago that we got Dragon Age of Veilguard, where they actually had trans surgery scars for your character creator. And then you had the cringy dialogue in the game that was clearly just the writer self-inserting them, or just using it as a soapbox in order to preach something. The dialogue felt completely unnatural, and even people who would ordinarily try to defend this sort of stuff in video games couldn't help but call it out and be like, yeah, this was pretty heavy-handed in a way you're trying to address these social issues that you're trying to talk about in your game. And that's why I'm thinking when it comes to the Oblivion Remaster, this does feel like it's a retreat, because like I said, there's a lot of people within the gaming industry who've professed that they're actually trying to push an agenda with it. They've gone a little bit too far with it, though, because at first it was just the body type 1 and 2. Then they started adding the pronouns. Then they started adding the top surgery scars, and they got so much backlash. They're like, okay, they're retreating back now to just the, I don't know, body type 1 and 2. So they have regressed in their argument right now. And some people are saying like, okay, this is good enough. I'm fine with body type 1 and 2 because it's basically just another term for male and female. So they're willing to play that and give it a chance, because Oblivion is it was a highly anticipated game. It was masterfully marketed the way they actually just started leaking out information in order to try to get people talking about it in the lead up to the release of it. So for this, the sake of this game, it actually worked. But for other games out there that don't necessarily carry the same name, I'm not sure that this would actually be successful. I think something like this would be enough to ultimately hurt the results. And then there are going to be people out here who are going to try to defend it, saying it's not a big deal, but at the same time, this is a very important thing and you better not remove it even on your own personal mods. So me personally, I played the game. I enjoyed the game so far because I was a huge fan of Oblivion, and having that male and female under a different name isn't going to bother me at the very start of the game. But if some people are going to pass it up, I understand it. But still, I don't think this is a victory for people who are trying to push a political agenda in games, because like I said, this is them sort of retreating and trying to find a place to hunker down in order to regroup, in order to push stuff again. But this isn't going to work for other studios out there. Only a few games could get away with doing something like this. Oblivion is one of them, but maybe the next games who are going to continue to push this and maybe even add pronouns and other stuff like that, they might not be so lucky. But let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. Do you think this is a victory for the woke people? Do you think people who are against that sort of thing are just being a little bit overly sensitive to it? Or do you think there is legitimate concern to criticize this sort of decision? Because it really does feel like the people who are justifying it really do feel strongly about why it's important, despite them saying it's not important at all. I'm curious what other people have to say about this. And also, if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And don't forget to click that like button and share this video out there, because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.